Hello and welcome to this edition of Wineskins. I'm Father Jim Corda. Wineskins is a program that features reflections on the lives of the saints in the sacred scriptures, along with a variety of issues and topics, all from a Catholic perspective. Wineskins is brought to you through the annual Bishop's Appeal, the Catholic Communication Campaign, and St. Paul's Catholic Books and Gifts, a division of the Society of St. Paul. On our program today, I will interview Sister Janet Gardner. In part 3 from our television series Spotlight, we will discuss Beatitude House. We will also hear more information on the life and times of St. Mary Magdalene, and today, as the Church celebrates the 16th Sunday in Ordinary Time, we will get a deeper insight into those particular Sunday readings. That and more on Wineskins. Catholic Charities is an important part of the life of the Church and her members. To share with us an important issue now is George Garchar. With me now is George Garchar, who is the Executive Director of Catholic Charities, serving Portage and Stark counties. And George, I'm glad to have you back on Wineskins.
Glad to be here, Father Corda.
You know, last time we were together, we talked about some of the many services and programs that Catholic Charities in those two counties provide to the parishes, and also working in tandem with organizations in the area. How do you kind of do that and keep the focus on what you're really all about, but also maintaining those primary services to the people?
It is a challenge. As you said, we try to provide a number of different services. We're best known for our basic needs assistance, food, shelter, in particular utility assistance, rent assistance. We have our First Step program for helping pregnant moms and families with young children provide diapers and formula. That's what we're best known for. But we have a number of other programs as well. One of the things that is a particular challenge for us is communicating the services that we have and continuing to keep that information flowing. It's a delicate balance between not wanting to be seen as self-serving and self-promoting, but needing really to get that information out there.
Well, I think it's really important as an organization like Catholic Charities that you have to get the word out, that you have these services that people need, and without feeling or being self-serving. But it's important to communicate that to people. What's the different avenues that you use or the Catholic Charities uses to disseminate that information?
One of the major ways is that we work as a system. So, there are several Catholic Charities agencies within the Diocese of Youngstown, all under the general umbrella of Catholic Charities Diocese of Youngstown. So the directors of those agencies, including myself, and then with great help from the central office staff at the Youngstown office, we do a lot of things together. We prepare our what we call a stats sheet, which provides information on the number of people served in all of our various programs. And that's done uniformly for all of the agencies, and then that is disseminated, again, with the help of our central office staff. Another way, in particular with communicating with our parishes, at our agency, our executive committee, which meets every other month, we've been holding our meetings, most of our meetings at parishes. And so we'll take an opportunity to meet the pastor and share information that way. In terms of community outreach, staff and myself try to be involved in various committees, attend public meetings, and try to get the word out that way. Despite all that, it can be sometimes frustrating to hear, well, what do you do at Catholic Charities? Or, what do you do with the money that we collect from the Bishop's Appeal? Because we've tried very hard to get that information out. But, there's a lot of competing information and very busy lives, so it's a continual challenge.
Well, I want you not to feel bad, because CTNY has been around for probably a little over 30 years, and we've been doing what we have been doing for a long time, and yet there are many people that still are not aware of the services that we provide. So
Right.
Don't feel bad about that. But let's focus, we have about 2 minutes left, on some of the particular services that you'd like to remind people that you offer in those particular counties.
Okay, thank you. In addition to the basic needs services that I've already mentioned, I think one other time I was on with you and I talked at some length about our Adult Day Services program, so I'll just mention that. But let me, in the limited time we have, just focus on a few programs that probably aren't as well known. We do various seasonal programs, one of which I'll just mention is school supplies. In Ravenna, we take donations of and then distribute school supplies in the fall for needy kids to go back to school prepared with their equipment and their supplies. A program in the Canton office that is different and unique is our Stark Pathways to Success. That is working with college students who are low income, have some special needs, very often single moms who need that extra support to make it through their school challenges. In Ravenna, we also do tax preparation for low-income wage earners through something called the Ohio Benefit Bank, and that allows people to get the returns they are entitled to without having to pay the tax service done. So those are just some examples of other programs that maybe people aren't aware of.
What we'd like to close with is just to remind the people that are with us that Catholic Charities is there to serve the people, whether you're Catholic or non-Catholic, but to serve the needs of the people in those particular counties and to inquire about particular services that they may be in need of that they may not be aware the Catholic Charities actually provide. So do you have a contact number or website that they can go to get more information?
Sure. The website is ccdoy.org. And our number in Ravenna is 330-297-7745. Our Canton number is 330-491-0896.
George Garchar, as always, we appreciate your presence and thank you for what you do for Catholic Charities.
Thank you.
For Wineskins, I'm Father Jim Corda. Saint Mary Magdalene was the first to see the risen Christ. To tell us more is Elena Chepke. She is from St. Joseph Church in Austintown.
The feast of St. Mary Magdalene, from Magdala, near the Lake of Galilee, has been celebrated on July 22nd since the 10th century at Constantinople in the monastery of St. Lazarus. It was believed that her relics were transferred to that monastery in 899 from Ephesus. In the 11th century, the feast spread throughout the church in the West, and in the 12th century, the Lateran Missal identified Mary Magdalene as Mary of Bethany, whose feast was celebrated by the Greeks on March 18th. The identity of Mary Magdalene is disputed, although many of the Western theologians maintain that Mary of Magdala and Mary of Bethany were one and the same person. Others, such as St. Jerome, St. Ambrose, St. Augustine, and St. Thomas Aquinas, leave the question unresolved. The Greeks, however, distinguish between the two Marys and have separate feasts in their honor. The liturgical texts assert that Christ first entrusted to Mary the joyful news of his resurrection. Mary received this testimony from the risen Lord and was told to carry the news to the apostles. "I have seen the Lord," she told them. She is therefore a model for all who are called to give witness to the risen Christ, as we ask in the opening prayer, "May we proclaim Christ as our living Lord." In the prayer over the gifts and the prayer after communion, there is another theme, loving worship and her faithful love that kept her close to Christ. St. Gregory the Great says, "Though the disciples had left the tomb, she remained. She was still seeking the one she had not found, and while she sought, she wept. Burning with the fire of love, she longed for him who she thought had been taken away." And so it had happened that the woman who stayed behind to seek Christ was the only one to see him. In the Gospel according to St. John, we read that Mary Magdalene was so distraught that she did not even recognize the risen Lord when he stood before her. Mary Magdalene, who had been liberated from 7 devils, became such a faithful follower of Christ that her name is placed first in the list of women who accompanied Jesus. And even on Calvary, the faithful Mary Magdalene took her stand beneath the cross. According to the Eastern tradition, after Pentecost, Mary Magdalene accompanied the Blessed Virgin and John to Ephesus, where she died and was buried. The example of St. Mary Magdalene's ardent love for Christ, her courageous stance on Calvary, and her profession of faith in the risen Lord are relevant for us also, who have not yet fully understood the Scriptures. For Wineskins, I am Elena Chepke.
I'm talking with Sister Janet Gardner of Beatitude House. Sister, we're going to talk about some of these real issues that really affect not only the clients and the people that you serve, but many Americans. But before we do that, if you could clarify again, we know about Beatitude House. Also part of the institution is Potter's Wheel and House of Blessing. Can you define those?
House of Blessing is simply the name that we give each of our sites for transitional housing. It is Beatitude House, but it's a House of Blessing Youngstown, a House of Blessing Warren, a House of Blessing Ashtabula. But we have had over the years also at a site called Potter's Wheel, St. Brendan's on the west side of Youngstown, an educational program. Because we believe that education is important, at one point we were offering GED services and other career training services for our women. Funding, of course, was cut over the last couple years, and we've had to curtail those programs because GED is being offered by other sites in the area. We did, however, begin a cooperative, an owner-run cleaning service called Beatitude House Green Clean. It was in operation for 5 years. The hope was that we would be able to give actual job training experience to our women. Maybe many of them have never had a job before. So we have moved them into the cleaning program. Unfortunately, and we did have some funding from the Campaign of Human Development, both locally and nationally, for this co-op. Our hope was that these women would be able to move from cleaners to supervisors to begin to assist in the management of this program and to be owners of this company. We did it when we actually closed in the spring of 2014, this cooperative program, because we were unable in our 5 years to become truly self-sufficient. We were draining funds from our primary purpose, our transitional housing. So Green Clean, however, served 275 customers, and we assisted 74 women going through this program. Now we are instead partnering with Goodwill, with Compass Professional Services, with some of the other training programs in each of the counties that we serve in, so that we resource those women into these other programs. So we don't run it ourselves at this point. It was a wonderful opportunity, but financially it didn't work out for us. So Potter's Wheel has succumbed, in a sense, to one program, which is an English language learning program right now. One of the Ursuline sisters, Sister Norma Roppel, has English learning classes with volunteers, with women who are immigrants to our country, primarily Hispanic, but from other countries as well, whether they be from Central America or from Asia or the Middle East.
Let's talk, Sister, about this whole cycle of poverty. How and why do people, in particular women, find themselves in this situation?
Well, from our statistics, we have probably about 63% of our women are coming from chronic poverty and from domestic violence, whether it be sexual or physical violence. They're also, probably about 43% of our women have had some history with drug or alcohol addiction in their past, or are struggling with it now and are in recovery programs. Sometimes they come directly from treatment programs. In fact, Youngstown, a study was done last year and found that Youngstown was number 1 in concentrated poverty. Our neighborhoods in Youngstown seem to be concentrated with a low level of income. So when you grow up in that kind of environment, there are very few resources, very few opportunities. Our women are coming from that. What we've found is that about 60% of women that are homeless have been homeless several times in their life. So they're coming out of that poverty. What we do is work with a program called Bridges, getting ahead in just getting a by world. We work with our women because women that have grown up in an environment of poverty look at life differently. Let me give you an example. food. If you go to a restaurant, someone in a low middle income or poverty, when they go to a restaurant, they're going to focus on the quantity of food. How much am I getting for what I am spending? A upper middle class person looks more closely at the quality of the food. Is this the best cut of meat? Is this a fresh vegetable? Someone who is wealthy doesn't look at either of those. They're looking at the presentation of the food. It may be very little on the food, but they're expecting a pleasant presentation. So the mindset that someone comes from with poverty very often influences what they do with their life. Work as well. People of poverty very much depend upon relationships because they need those relationships to survive. Middle class people are looking at education and what you have been able to do, your knowledge, your skills. The wealthy look at their connections. Who do I know? Who am I connected with? Who can I do business with? So we really look at all of those aspects with our women and try to help them move into a worldview that is the majority of our society so that they can fit into that society, that they can be more accomplished, more economically stable, and have more stability within our society.
Sister, we're down to about a minute left in our time together. The folks that are with us, if they would like to help Beatitude House, Potter's Wheel, this House of Blessing ministry in any way, what do they do? Who do they contact?
The best place to go is to our website. Most people have access to that, beatitudehouse.com, not org, but com. That would be the best place. We have a Facebook page as well, Beatitude House, and they can always call our central office, which is 330-744-3147. They can call any of our sites. If there's someone actually in need, the best place for them to call would be 211 or their local shelter or helpline, since we really receive our referrals from them. Anyone who comes to us needs to be homeless, and usually that means that they've been in a shelter or they are on the street.
Well, Sister Janet Gardner, I wish we had more time because
it's always good to share.
Definitely have a lot of wonderful stories, and please know of our support for the wonderful ministry that you are doing through Beatitude House, and this is truly
Thank you very much.
A house of blessing. Thank you.
It's been great to be here. Thanks a lot, Father Cormac.
Thank you for being with us. Have a good day, and God be with you.
Stay with us. We'll be back in a moment.
33 million Americans have descended into poverty. And as their futures fall, so does our nation's.
Our song today is from the CD called Window to Peace. It is by Jerry Jalapo on piano and Denise Lagilia on flute.
As we celebrate this 16th Sunday in Ordinary Time, I will share more about the sacred scriptures. In this world, human suffering comes in many different forms. Some people suffer from physical pain. They go to bed with it at night, get up with it in the morning, and live with it all day long. Others suffer from mental anguish and emotional distress. Their minds and hearts are in constant turmoil and agitation. Seldom, if ever, do they know what it is to have peace of mind. Still others in our world suffer from poverty. Every day is another chapter in the struggle for the bare necessities of life: food, clothing, shelter, all the things we take for granted. Another form is to watch the suffering or dying of a loved one. Sometimes this agony grows so intense that death, when it comes, is a welcome relief. We could go on and on. The list of things that cause people to suffer is endless, and most of us have witnessed virtually all of them in some degree or another. But there is one form of suffering which seems to surpass all the rest, and that is those who suffer from self-pity. There are none who suffer more than those who feel sorry for themselves. I think we have an example of that in today's gospel reading. Martha bursts into the room insisting that Jesus instruct Mary, her sister, to help her with the work. She was showing all the forms of self-pity. She felt neglected, abused, sorry for herself. I wonder how many people actually suffer from self-pity. It's a fairly common illness, and we have all experienced it at one time or another. Having said that, I believe we can learn to deal with it by learning from Martha's experience. Consider first the symptoms of self-pity. One is complaining. That's what Martha was doing. I doubt she really expected Jesus to holler at Mary and send her to the kitchen. I think that she just wanted to be certain that everyone knew how mistreated she thought she was, and so she complained about it. Now, don't misunderstand me. It is an act of wisdom to talk about our problems and frustrations in the presence of sympathetic listeners. There are times when we need a listening ear and an understanding heart. But there is a world of difference between seeking answers to our problems and complaining about our problems. A second symptom is criticism of others. What bothered Martha was not her being overworked, but the fact that Mary wasn't working at all. Now, it isn't fair that one person should do all the work all the time, but in that household, that probably was not the case. Martha wanted to entertain lavishly, but Mary preferred to just grab a sandwich and spend her time visiting with Jesus. Martha could have done the same. Instead, she chose to complain and criticize, to blame her problem on Mary, and even implicate the Lord. Those are the sure symptoms of self-pity. Here is the irony of it all. Self-pity is always self-inflicted. The people I have known who suffer from that oftentimes have no reason in the world to do so. The complainers and criticizers in our world usually have problems that are self-imposed, imagined, or even exaggerated. Another cause of self-pity is blindness to our blessings. Martha complained that she had to cook the food, totally forgetting that there were some people who had no food to eat. We complain about our job and having to go to work, and forget that there are many who have no job. Young people complain about going to school, while many in this world would give anything for a good education. Remember the old adage, "I complained because I had no shoes, until I met a person who had no feet." Oftentimes, we fail to see how fortunate and blessed we really are. Finally, let's consider a cure for self-pity. Mary had the answer. She seated herself at the feet of Jesus and listened to his words. His words can help us keep our values straight, and his suffering can remind us that we are blessed indeed. Who among us can look at the cross and complain about our lot in life? Martha didn't know about the cross. We do. we celebrate it in the Eucharist. That one fact should make all the difference in the world. There is really no room for self-pity in the presence of the cross of Christ. For Wineskins, I'm Father Jim Corda. Hospitality means that we invite others to cross boundaries. God has been revealed as a merciful boundary breaker when it serves our good and our deepest happiness. Jesus himself broke the greatest boundary, the one that divided divinity and humanity. What boundaries today cause needless separation and harm, how can they be mercifully crossed and even eradicated? Wineskins is a production of CTNY, the Catholic Telecommunications Network of Youngstown. It is brought to you by the Annual Bishop's Appeal, the Catholic Communication Campaign, and St. Paul's Catholic Books and Gifts. I'm your host, Father Jim Corda, wishing you a beautiful week.